first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of April 24. Can I have a motion to approve, please? Somebody, Michael. Second, please. Okay. Corrections, additions, deletions, anything?
The only thing I saw was if it was missing an S, but it didn't really matter if it was a plural. So it's not that big of a deal.
Okay, I'm hearing none.
Exactly. Not a priority.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hear none. Abstentions? I hear none. It's unanimous. Okay, I will mention that I got a letter from Rolf Owen to, just as a, he said he felt that there were people who don't understand the budgeting process in the RTM. Well, Ed needed a list, whatever list you're making. Even when you read through it, it's complicated. He's wondering if there was some way that we could have a presentation on the process. So we wouldn't have to do that until December or January. We had all the new people in.
Yeah.
So, you know, I will put it on the agenda to look at, but not until the fall sometime.
Seth, could you please introduce all our guests?
Yes, well, Bobby, what was your last name, I'm sorry?
Bobby Birdie.
Bobby Burney, he is an associate with Brinkerhoff Law Firm, works with this guy on the end here, Wayne Fox. Yeah, and he's the guy who was
Can you
doing all the
spell
work
Bernie is
on the
what the
leases.
request is?
I'm sorry.
Can you spell Bernie?
B-U-R-N-E-Y.
Not how I had it.
Happens a lot.
Yeah. But by the way, you should play baseball, because that's a baseball player's name.
Wish I had the athleticism.
And then we've got Joe Macho. I'm sorry, no, Joe's part of it. He's on the rules committee. Never mind. Ralph Coleman.
So where?
Joe, come sit with us. Come on up. Come
Just
up
pull your
front.
seat. You can sit
There's the
here.
big people's table. Yeah. You can be the master of ceremonies.
And our registrar, distinguished registrar is here. We've got a full boat and
Former.
former.
RTM member, District
RTM member
6.
now. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've
I'm sorry, I don't know your name. What is your name?
That's okay. John Vesey.
John Vesey, who wrote a distinguished memorandum.
And TGS lane number.
Yes.
Yes. I'm practicing for
Practicing, there you are. And so I'm Krista, I'll be Krista McNamara's here too. So it's great.
His dissertation.
Yes, his dissertation.
Seth,
You guys are gonna have to speak up.
Seth, it's Teresa. Can I interrupt you for a quick second?
Yeah, sure.
I think I'm going to be speaking for Adele. We can't hear a thing you guys are saying. It's just all a bunch of mumbling.
Well, let me move the computer to the middle of the table and see if that helps.
Thank you.
Mike, wherever you are, I heard you perfectly.
Yeah, well, that's because the computer's here now.
You gotta speak up, Seth. I got my computer all the way up.
Yeah, the volume, yeah.
How's this, Adele?
And then all talking at once. It's like a bunch of mumbling.
Mumble. Oh, no, wait, that really was mumbling.
Pretty much what it sounds like, yeah.
Seth, that brings
Okay,
us
it's
back
on
to
as long as it'll go, so we'll just have to concentrate on speaking up and remembering you're there.
I have a great joke about that, I'll tell you about it later. Okay, so I just thought, I know that Jack's been doing a little work, been involved in a couple of things, but I wanted to just put the RTM committee descriptions back on the table because we agree we want to try and get that done. So I just put it out there. Is there a sense of timing on this?
Frank and I,
Frank?
I'll speak loud. Frank and I have spoken together. We're trying to set up a meeting amongst ourselves and include Kate, because I think Triumphant is
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, not a bad idea. Come up with some high-level definitions that we will give back to the committee chairs for their review, edits, whatever they want to do, and then bring it forward Yeah, for this, for the rules and everything else. Plus that chart needs to be updated because there's a whole bunch of new groups and committees that have formed. Great Island one.
There's a small one, yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Keep rolling. Next item is amending the Darien zoning regulations. This is an update. We passed this once and then we were notified by planning and zoning that, by Jeremy, that he had corrections to make. He sent us a long letter about it. And so now what we want to do is assign committees, PZ&H primary, and then F&B because
It's financial.
it's financial. Everybody, okay? So I'll ask for a motion to assign PZ&H as primary, F&B secondary on this item.
I'll move that motion.
Okay, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? I saw the chair. Never mind.
Speaking of PZ&H.
PZ&H, hand go up.
Good, we just got assigned, you just got the first
You're
assignment.
just in time, Amy. All right.
Jeremy.
Abstentions, I see none. It's unanimous. Next item is approving various leases for tenants of Great Island. And just assigning committees, what, PZ&H and F&B, PZ&H primary
Well,
again?
first, let's start off with, even though we have
I'm
five.
speaking broadly first, because I know where we're going.
Yeah, okay. I'm just getting to the point. There's 5 leases that we have. Each one should be voted on separately because each one is a separate legal document, even though 4 of them are similar. There is a 6th lease that was extended until March, May, sometime in there, in '24. I have requested that Amy and I get a copy of that, on that part. So I think PZ&H is primary, F&B is secondary. I don't know, Mark, if you want Public Works to
That was
opine
the
on them
only
also?
sewers or whatever. The leases don't really have any.
They relate to town property, right?
Right.
Yeah, all right. So you're saying yeah?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
you probably should.
All right.
It's got the arsenic in it.
And, yeah, it's missing the old lace.
Very clever. Yeah.
So that would have a separate one on each with the stable being last. I have requested a financial of the, very high level financial of the special reserve fund. It was originally set up with the 400,000 based upon what the revenues were
Right.
at that time. We're down to leases, and I don't know what the changes in the leases were in total revenue yet. And then high-level expenses, Kate's out until the 30th. She asked me, she wasn't sure exactly what I wanted. Amy and I have had a brief conversation on it, and we're gonna give her, this is what we want, very high level, but
I'll
that's it.
introduce Amy Zavatak, distinguished chair of the museum.
Feel very mentioned.
Well, I was introducing visitors earlier, so. All right, so I need a motion to split the approvals of the various leases for Great Island into 6 pieces, 6 different leases, is that what we?
Five, we're only improving 5.
Okay, 5. And,
We don't know why we're not approving the 6, so
What is the 6th?
well, I would be happy to pose that question
that's why I was
to our
asking.
distinguished attorneys.
The 6th was, there was a right to extend that lease, that individual did extend.
Wayne, you.
When you guys get way much louder.
Yeah.
The 6th lease had with it the ability to extend it. That was in the existing lease. The folks over there did in fact extend the lease as they had the right to do. So there's no real reason for us to review it because there's not a lot we can do about it. It is what it is. They extended it the same as their previously.
And they're the ones who extended it the extra year?
Correct.
Okay.
So because it's a lease with the town, even though it's an extension, why is that different from all other leases?
Because we are making the new leases with respect
Wait, you got
to... You will be looking at new leases for the other 5. This is one that the people had the right to extend it, they had the right to extend those terms, and they exercised that right. So we took subject to that right.
I'm asking you just so that that answer is clear before we go into our meeting on Monday night. I also understand that these they're not final leases yet. What we have is what the Board of Selectmen has proposed to the tenants, but if the tenants do not accept what was proposed,
They have to come back.
then they'll come back or the lease is void, really.
Then there is no lease,
Right,
or in fact, there may be another lease which would have to come back to you. In other words, if
right.
what you have is not accepted, and if in fact there are some significant changes, I don't mean a situation where the D was changed to an E or something of that nature, but the rent was changed from $500 to $1,000, anything of substance would have to come back to you folks.
Do they have a drop dead date to finalize the lease on their side?
They don't. I do know that Monica has met, I believe, with all of them. I understand she'll be meeting with them again, and that we're hoping by the time it gets to you folks for a vote, we will know where these folks are in those respective leases.
So soon?
Soon, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But Monica can't sign until we authorize.
No. At least
Right.
under section 48 of the charter, it is very clear that leases have to be approved by your body.
Right.
Okay.
What is,
Can we
what
do a
is?
voice vote?
Wait, no, wait, wait.
Well, I'm getting there.
Lois.
Yes, Lois.
What property is this 6th one that has the automatic renewal?
18 Grid Island.
Okay,
If
so,
I could ask one more question on that one,
yeah,
on
yeah.
that 6th one.
Mark.
So I understand that the existing lease had a right to be extended. Was it extended prior to the transfer?
Yes.
Or? Got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Seth,
Yes,
how much
yeah, Joe.
detail will we be getting on these leases?
You will have the leases, or you already do.
You do.
They've already been sent.
We know how these numbers came up, the values, and
They're
are we just
negotiated.
gonna,
They're negotiated with lessors.
because I went down there and I looked at these places. And, I don't know, it seems like they're a little low.
Joe, I think that we can hand that off to the 3 committees
Yeah.
and have them report on that.
Will this involve any executive session stuff, like
Should
when
not, no.
all this stuff was negotiated, the purchase was any of this discussed during the
There was a...
Purchase?
There were leases which were before the Board of Selectmen. Board of Selectmen discussed it in open session. Documents were discussed in open session. Any meetings that you folks have or any information you want to gather can be taken in open session.
Okay, so there's no executive session.
There's no need for it, in my opinion.
Okay, so to each of the 5 leases,
Seth?
we're, oh, yes, Frank.
Question, so,
Yeah.
would it be necessary for us to vote on the topic of whether the names of the lessees should be redacted from the public document?
I think
Or is this something that you can do at your discretion?
I think it is a public document. I think it can be treated as a public document. So anything you want to discuss about it can be discussed in a public meeting. Keep in mind that the role of the RTM is to vote yes or no. The RTM does not negotiate the terms of the contract. For example,
We don't want to be in
I'm
that.
not asking negotiation, I'm just
Privacy.
asking for propriety or comity, since these people are townsfolk
they are,
and known to many people, to have their budget exposed to everybody for no good reason.
well,
For a reason that I don't understand. So we redact all the time for various reasons. Do we have to vote as to whether to request they be redacted, or is it something you can just consider when you're preparing the final document to be circulated to the RTM?
In my opinion, there is not information that you are getting about these folks that would need to be redacted. It's not like you're getting their social security numbers, or their income, or their assets. They have a lease that we wish to extend for a limited period of time, and they're paying X number of dollars, and this is who it is. I don't see the need to keep that private or to redacted.
If we should vote to do that, would that be proper?
Good question. I don't think.
Put yourself in the role of someone who's been there renting the property for years, a member of the community, and expects some reasonable privacy to their financial affairs as to whether all everybody in town knows what rent they're paying every month, where we can easily, I hope, easily just strike the names, redact the names, without much trouble.
Wayne, what's the downside of saying this is 16 Great Island,
Yeah.
this is 24, and just not saying the people's names? That's my question.
If in fact, I'll tell you what my concern is,
Because we don't do it with blight, we just, right?
but there's no reason you couldn't do it with blight.
Yeah, but that was part of the whole decision years ago
That's
when it
part
came
of
in
the
front
policy
of
that they have, not part of the
TGSNA.
law.
We
It's
didn't
part of
want
the
it.
policy that they
Yeah.
have, and that's fine if they wish to do that. My concern would be that if we start redacting things, in the world in which we live, there's a distinct possibility someone's going to try to file an FOI request. I'm trying to avoid that. That would be more troublesome for these folks than, this is who I am, I'm renting this property, I'm paying X. They're not like you're reflecting what your income is, what your assets are, you're paying rent at a home. So I don't think there's a need to do that. I can say as we sit here, that if in fact you chose not to do that, I can't say that's a violation of the law. So I guess you could do it, Frank, if you wanted to. But I don't see the need to do it, or a justification to do it, or the basis to do it. So should someone come in and say, we want to see that lease, I think we have the right to see it. I wouldn't make more of it than you have to.
Yeah, of course, I don't want to get tangled up in anything. I was just suggesting this as a courtesy.
There has been no request, as I understand it, from the people leasing to have their names redacted,
Not that I'm aware of.
you know.
I am
And they
aware.
have, they have attorneys, I'm guessing.
All right, face it, they're friends of mine, long-standing friends of mine. And when we were talking about it, they said, will our names be part of the public record? And I said, I don't know, I'll bring it up in rules. So if you say you're not aware, I can certainly have them call you, and then you would be aware. It's a courtesy, that's all it is.
And I understand that, Frank, I'm sure it's well intended one. My opinion is, if you wished to do it, then I think you have the right to do it. I don't think it's going to achieve the goal that you rightfully wish, because these were already made public in the meeting of the Board of Selectmen. So anyone that wanted to see them could get them. If anyone wanted to file an FOI request, I believe they would get them. So I think you're probably making more of it than one need to, but I'll leave that to your good judgment.
But they're not on the witness protection list or anything like that. It's just members of the town. And any one of us could be in the same situation at some point.
Okay, Krista?
I just wanted, for public comment, my question would be, if this document has been circulated with the names as a public document as you shared, if in turn the decision was to redact, how would we file those? How would I file them? As two different documents? That's where my concern, I didn't understand.
I think at some point in time, they would be filed in the land records. And I think-
I'm just, even the lease, right, they will be filed on the land records, but right now as a document, as material used in a public meeting and open session, how would I handle two different documents, one with the name and one without the name?
I'm sorry to say, you would then have two documents, one with the names and one without them.
And so both would have to be posted?
They would both have to be posted.
Lovely. Amy?
I have maybe a suggestion that might be an interim step that sort of would be like they do with blight. With blight, if you want to know who owns the properties, you can go down and see them. It is a record, a public record that's available with the names. But the committee doesn't use the names when they're discussing the properties. I think we could say and suggest to all of our committees as they're discussing it, just refer to the addresses, don't use the name. There's no reason for us to use the names in our committee discussions or in our presentations to the RTM. I think that might be a good intro. So it's a policy as we have with blight, where we say, just let's not use the names when we're discussing it, but it's still the public record stays the public record.
So if I might clarify, because I've already, as soon as I got those leases,
I
because
have
originally we were scheduled to have a meeting on Wednesday, but because I didn't have the leases at that time, I canceled that F&B meeting. And now it's whether or not I got tickets for Tuesday or Wednesday for the Miami game in Miami. Is when we're having our F&B meeting. The fact of the matter is, we don't need to redact the names, we just don't use them in the committee discussion and reports, and we leave it that way. So, yes, people can get them in the public record. I'm not getting them back from my committee members.
Jack, there's nothing wrong in doing that.
Okay.
That's what you wish to do.
That's
I
a
think this is a reasonable,
Yep. Yep.
a reasonable approach. Let's move on.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to
Break them up, right?
break them up into 5 leases with PZ&H primary, F&B secondary.
And public
And
works.
public works.
You want to add, okay.
Yeah.
Public Works.
F&B will go last, so we have a very short report.
There we go. All right. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed?
Did Mark make the motion for that?
I made the
Yeah.
motion.
Okay.
Yeah,
Who's
you
the
did.
second? Who's the second?
Second. Lois seconded.
Just that one.
You want to hold the two people on?
Can you see?
I can't. Just hold
I
it
can
back.
see.
With
Yeah, you guys in favor?
Adele, can you hear?
Yes. As soon as I'm in favor, you guys really don't want to see my face because I had surgery.
I won't assume, just say, are
I'm
you?
in favor, unless otherwise.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in favor.
Thank you.
Adele? She said yes.
She said yes.
She said
Yes.
yes.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, it's unanimous. The next one is very exciting. Accept a gift of statues appraised at $425,000 from the Steinkraus family. I'm sitting there trying to find, I put F&B primary and Park and Rec secondary.
I don't think it's Park and Rec because they don't have any authority currently
Yeah,
over Great
yeah.
Island. But if Mark wants to talk about
Opine on
that, he can. Otherwise, otherwise, to me, I just thought it was F&B. And quite honestly, since I haven't been given the appraisal for $425,000, and I did see those statues, so I don't doubt the value of it.
There is an appraisal, I will see to it that you get it.
Oh, that's too bad. I was just willing to say, after I just said that was the last $10,000 gift that we got, that this is the first $12,500 gift we're getting. And that's all that anybody really needs to know.
Yeah.
It's been in the newspaper and everything about what the value is.
Okay, so
Beautiful
I'll
statues.
accept a motion on this to put F&B primary, and then that'll be the only committee. Thank you, Patty. Second. Thank you, Lois. All in favor? Okay, great.
I heard it down. Teresa,
I Teresa.
TV people,
we got it.
got them,
Unanimous.
unanimous. Terrific. Next is a very detailed and hard put together memo from John Vesey about trying to figure out, what the distribution's gonna be for districts. Well, he thought District 5 and 6, but it'll probably affect everybody.
Right.
As I look at this topic, it's primarily the registrars and the town clerk who are going to do the analysis, right? And determine how it's going to be, how it's going to be laid out. And then would be up to the RTM to approve after they did their work.
Right, it depends on what you do to address the situation. If it could involve other groups, and it could directly involve us, but it could involve the RTM members, it could involve the voters. You know, for almost 10 years, I moved people around periodically to solve problems, and it's kind of near and dear to me. But when I see the growth in 5 and 6, and I look at the formula that Krista uses to figure out how many members are in each district.
I'm gonna interrupt you right there. That is stated in the charter. It's not my.
Right. But what she uses.
Correct, thank you.
You could end up
For those of
with
us who read the charter before coming,
you could end up with a big imbalance in the districts. I mean, you see the numbers for District 6. I only used, when I worked with Jeremy, I decided in that chart to just put one person, one count for each address. It's possible you could have 2 registered voters in some of those condos and whatever. So if you look at those numbers, they could be even greater than what I put on there. So, yeah.
So can I ask you the question that's all, so Lois and I sat in the meeting with you
Right,
a
right,
year
I
ago.
remember that, yeah, that was.
When the state Hartford had redistricted us, so that had nothing to do with you or us doing it. But we knew that our particular District 1 was kind of getting chopped up in 3 different spots. And I said at that time, I know that the federal realty property is going to come in with a lot of people. Do we really want to take people out of District 1 and lose 2 reps, which is what we were essentially doing? But that was what we had to do. So now, I would say we should, I guess my question is I would encourage that dialogue to then continue once federal realty is filled, and it seems the simplest thing to do is just move some of District 5 back into 1. And it's the upper part, it's closer to the high school, because you're going to be taking so much this area.
The reason we
But I
made that move
Yeah.
was based on the state
I
boundaries.
understand, yeah.
So, to move them back, you would end up having probably another ballot in District 1. You have 3 now. You might end up with another ballot, because you haven't come out of the state boundary.
So can you ever,
See, there's different reasons.
Wait. Can I just interrupt for a second? First of all, let's understand that the state determines their boundaries on population, not registered voters. One of the things that it reminded me of, it was I was managing 2 campaigns, and Patty, who's now a state rep, had 5,000 voters, and somebody who I was representing up in North Stamford, which it was William Tong's district, had 10,000 voters. So the number of voters is not used in the state, it's population. That's number 1. Number 2, I understand there's confusion of how many ballots we might have, and that does cause an expense to the town. But what will not happen is that 2 districts have 25 representatives and 2 districts have 10.
Right, and that was my concern.
Well, why do you say that? May I ask, if you don't mind, why would you say that?
Because we have the capability of redefining the RTM districts, and even though it's a pain in the behind to have another ballot there for certain people, it's something that can be done that's easy. And while I don't want to get into Stanford's redistricting, but every year when they have a town election, they get little postcards, because where they vote for the state election, they only do once on an off year from the state. But on that odd year, they could be voting in a different ballot place than where they vote in for federal and state elections. So we have the capabilities as this moves to reallocate various people, or maybe we do something very similar to what we did at Atria. The Board of Ed moved the Atria to Tokenique, and we move a building into another
I think
district.
the difference there,
Avalon?
which is
Yeah,
what
that's-
Yeah.
John is bringing forward for TGSNA to pursue, is your point there, Jack. This has come up, and Wayne was involved in this discussion as to whether or not per our charter, is that permissible?
Frank?
Well, no, I'm not suggesting that we go on population, I'm just suggesting.
No, whatever criteria, that,
Right,
that it is not permissible to start moving. Well, this is something they want to explore.
Right.
Frank?
And it was
Having
based on what
had
we-
the benefit
Yeah.
of quarterbacking the last effort at this, and I thought it
You
worked
did a
through the
great job,
numbers.
thank you.
I worked through the numbers that you have, and with the projections that you have for 5 and 6, they made a difference of 1 representative and at this time, given that those numbers. I'd also like to mention that, subject to Wayne's approval, the charter says how Krista has got to do her job in 60 days before the election.
So that's the
And
cutoff.
publish the results 40 days before the election, which will then determine how many representatives will come out
Right.
from each district, and that's very important as far as getting the names on the ballot. There's nothing in this paragraph that says we have to have balanced districts. RTM moderators over the years have said, please don't change this, let's leave this alone, because you start moving people around and there's somebody with tenure or seniority within RTM all of a sudden finds themselves in another
A different district in
That's
fact.
frequently cited. But in terms of democracy, that has to happen. But it doesn't have to happen until these projects are populated, people move in, they come down to the office to register, and we get the numbers, and then we can make a decision on it. So I'm really glad that Tom did this research. I've never seen anything like that. It's wonderful.
Yeah, the correspondence is.
But
Yeah.
as this is updated through actual experience, Krista will do her calculation, and after that,
So if it's only
we can
one
figure
route,
out how the
it's not a big
district,
deal.
but they're not in danger of having one district. Being 25, it looks as if 5 and
When
6,
fully
So that's-
5 and 6 will pick up 1.
Well,
Excuse me.
And 2 other districts will lose 1. And we can live with that for a year.
And
My
then-
opinion is, we can live with that until the numbers shake out.
Well, the numbers are cut off, right? 40 days.
60 days.
60 days ahead of time, that's it. Whatever the electors are at that point in time to determine, right?
And Krista will advise us of that, so that.
So there is a cutoff, it's not an open, and it
No,
looks like
as
it's
far as the
a,
ballot, Frank is correct, the ballot is cut off at the population of electors 60 days, between 40 and 60 days. I think there's 2 different issues, though. I think what John is looking to do and asking of TGSNA is to sort of research this. Is it the RTM's objective to have equal representation, as you referenced prior moderators and perhaps rules members felt? Or are you all okay, or the RTM okay, with representation by electors? That's why we have the House and the Senate in Washington. Which way does the Darien RTM want to go? And the ability for this body, Frank and John and colleagues, is to say, this is how we see it going. RTM, what do you want to do about this? And importantly, does the charter let the registrar of voters manipulate to create your Senate,
She was
for
looking
example?
for somebody to tutor her daughter this summer who's finishing her sophomore year in college. She has to take Econ 101.
Hey, Teresa, you're on speaker.
We know someone is not paying attention.
right. All right, so I would take a motion to assign TGSNA to do this analysis and come to some conclusion, make a recommendation to rules about where they think we are and what they think the solution is.
I would speak against the resolution in that it's premature. We're very thankful that John and Krista have done this research, but if there's any concrete matter on the table, there is not. The charter does not require it, and we can function very well with an imbalance in people in the district. We're a homogeneous town. Is there not a town that has been gerrymandered with various socioeconomic differences or whatever? So I would speak against the resolution, say not, do it eventually, but not at this time. There's no issue on the floor other than an awareness that people may move in. We need to recognize that they may move in, and when they move in, we'll have to see how they register themselves, if they do. And then we may have an issue to take up. And at this point, I'm not really quite sure what the content of that report is, or where I would go to research that topic. We don't have the wherewithal.
Can I ask a question?
So therefore, I would vote no.
Yeah, Jack, and
I think the only thing that was being asked is that TGS&A keep track of this, which is the same way John just produced a report now, is that we come next June, we get the next report. The following June, we get the next report.
And sometimes the sandwich falls jelly side up, because John is on TGS&A.
I'm just, hence why I suggested that.
If I can ask a clarifying question, John,
Yeah.
those tables I read as projections, not actual.
Yeah, they're from Jeremy, yeah.
And so
I
60
think it even says in there where people have moved in already versus vacancy still, yeah.
Yeah, these are under construction units.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Approved and under construction.
So they are projections, but if we take a cutoff, and John is willing to continue, we would then have an updated list at some time, figure out what's a good time, whether or not May is a good time, or you may need a couple months, whatever it is, and that he'd bring it to TGS&A, and if there is some disparity that TGS&A then believes should be moved forward, that's what I perceive the resolution to be, nothing more than that.
And fine, we accept it as an interesting topic. My objection to it is not right now. Let's bear in mind that Krista has to do her job 60 days ahead of time, and based on a calculation, based on the data, I have 60 days, and announce it 40 days ahead. During that time, between those 40 days and the preparation of the ballot, we don't have the time to redraw districts. The redrawing of districts needs to be done in the next cycle.
Right, but we can
No,
always.
that's what we're not doing is redrawing districts. That's what's
Correct.
not happening.
I'm sorry?
That is what is not happening, is redrawing districts per council's recommendation.
Yeah, I just want to reaffirm the fact that nobody be under the impression that this thing is moving that quickly. And we would only be aware of the fact that one district may pick up 40 days before the election, and then after the election is held, during that next working calendar year, we can take the topic up as to whether, in response to the change, we want to rejigger the district boundaries.
I would say the analysis is
Correct?
helpful.
Did I state that correctly?
Yeah.
I would almost invert it, that by the time I get to my numbers and my role, you want to know what you want to be doing before then. I think the analysis going into, because there's no rejiggering, there's no movement at my point. If you're anticipating it, you can act in anticipation of that, so I don't come out and say, District 5 has 25 people and the other 5 are scattered. So this way you have the answer before that time and you guys can act accordingly.
Of course, I don't think we want to rejigger street boundaries and where people are voting based on a projection. I do not think that we can do that
No, tracking real
this
numbers.
summer, prior to the, what is 60 days anyway, August? When does that come out? July? So we're not, we really are not set up legislatively to rejigger, to reassign streets,
This was
to
just supposed to.
reform our districts
Yeah.
before we have the data, before you publish the data.
Yeah.
And as I said, the next year, There's certainly a topic to be on the table. It can be done. We can do anything we want, or we can do nothing, because the charter does not require balanced districts.
But does the charter now allow us, Wayne, to move streets around?
I don't think that's what's intended by what we find in the charter and the rules.
Right, that's what we figured out, yeah.
Lois?
Say that again? What did you figure out?
I don't think that's what the charter was intended to do.
That the charter feels that, from your reading of the charter, the charter says these are the districts, and who cares how many people are in each one?
Right. It doesn't, it's silent on that
I
topic.
get that, but there's a difference between silence and not an opinion or implying something else, so that's what I'm trying to understand.
I'm not implying anything. I think what Jackson was accurate, and what Johnson was accurate. This is an attempt to keep an eye on what's happening.
I guess
This is that's what you may want to do.
Okay, I would like to...
Just so that people on the.
Yeah, Wayne, yeah.
What Wayne just said, that what John and Jack said was that the intent of the motion was just that we're tracking this so that we know what it is on an annual basis, and nothing more than that. And if at some time that it does require something, then the data is there for people to use. That's all I
would,
say.
I don't object to track.
Okay.
I would object to researching a position paper as to whether we should have balanced districts.
Okay.
Before the issue's on the table.
All right, so
Tracking's fine.
I agree.
All right, so, yes, Lois.
Because it's gonna evolve over multiple years.
I would also
Yeah.
request that we step back from that and say, what are the issues of redistricting or not? And this idea of balance isn't going to change, you know, if we look at it, is balance a good idea? At what point does balance come off and how far off? And you don't need a set criteria, but I don't want to sit here a year from now having the same conversation about should we, could we. More of, I get following the numbers makes sense, but can we just have, this is what it would take to balance, this is what the value of balancing is, this is what the concern is in balancing, and this is what type of thing may look off. We can change it all the time, but I just think we can do an upfront guideline on looking at this and then follow the numbers. Because we spent a lot of time last year going through this, and now we're doing the same thing again, and I'm sure we will. But if we can get our ideas down, not have to have the basic discussion and just look at numbers whenever we need to, that's my suggestion. It's up to your committee.
That's in the
So you're saying it was some sort of guidelines, is that?
Well, some sort of definition and pluses and minuses. Does it matter if the districts are even or not? I mean, each of us may have different opinions, and we don't have to decide the answer, but these are the things one needs to think about when one's looking at it. And if one or two doesn't matter, but 4 or 5 does, then we have some criteria ahead of time, and then we can respond more quickly when we know what the numbers are. That's what I'm trying to do, to set up some guidelines.
Well, we spent a lot of time on the phone, on conference calls, explaining it, because no one knew what the impact was gonna be until
And then we
it
did a
came out.
district meeting, and it was very helpful.
What did we move? One person or 2?
Essentially 2. One was
2.
grandfathered in to stay a little longer.
Right, and there was a lot of discussion on it, so even 1 or 2 caused.
Two's a lot, as you said, if somebody is a senior person on something.
Well, that's getting.
But that's a separate thing.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
But it's a guideline.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think that at the end of the day, what we're saying is TGS&A is the appropriate committee to be tracking this and coming back and saying, here's what the actual numbers are based upon what people have moved in and who has actually registered. That's all I thought that Seth's original resolution meant. I'll also just put a little aside, only because I was in marketing.
I would be disappointed.
Anytime when something is silent on something, that means that you're wide open to figure out what you can do, because it doesn't say you can't. That's why I was in product development.
All right, so, and there was also some discussion though about parameters that the TGS&A might come with.
I think it's
some
identification.
parameters that.
I think it's more identification of the pluses and minuses of moving versus not moving, or equal districts versus not equal districts. I I think it would be difficult to come up with set numbers and then that triggers a response. I don't think we want to go there. But I think it's important to understand that we've thought through imbalance. Somebody here said imbalance wasn't a problem. Others may think imbalance is a problem. So I think getting the implications of balance or imbalance, pulling that
So a
together.
little
does not-
analysis, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah, and you know, as Frank said, if he did the analysis, it's only one, it's not a big deal, but for example, that's with regards to the Darien Commons, but we're going to be picking up a lot of additional people for the Palmer's project, and that is also District 5. So this work now can help inform us for the future when that gets developed down the line too. So it's all a good thing.
And 10 years later, once this population is settled in, the state's gonna have a field day again in
Change
redistricting
it all
because
around.
they're gonna have to.
I thought you were gonna say dead, once we're all dead. I'm glad you said once they've settled in.
All
Some of
right,
us might get there before others.
I'm gonna try this again. I will take a motion to have PGSNA monitor in the RTM district representation and give us some analysis from time to time. That keep us out
Just
of
say,
trouble.
and the implications.
We can do that.
Implications, thank you. Can I have a second for that, please? Oh, Frank, oh, and I didn't get, well, Frank will move it. Who's the
I'll
second?
second it.
And Jack will second it. All in favor?
And thank you, John.
Okay, good.
So that was Frank and,
Are the TV folks, are they in favor?
Adele and Teresa?
Teresa?
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
Adele and Teresa are in?
that was unanimous?
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Terrific. Next is we'll set the agenda for June 5. So we're going to put the Darien zoning regulations amendment.
Can we put the gift next?
Yes, we may put the gift next.
Those are two quickies.
There we go.
And then lease one, lease two,
And
lease
then
three,
do
lease
the
four.
leases
Stables.
and
Yes.
and then the gift.
No,
The gift,
No.
no, we put the gift next. I'm sorry, my pen just decided it was not going to.
Did you say stable less?
And last, yeah.
Last of the
So
five.
do you actually want reports, everybody to report, sit back down again, report, sit
Could
back
do
down
'em.
again?
No, you're just gonna stand up there like I have to.
And when we do the leases, just in the agenda, is it
So,
going to say
amend the
item
zoning,
3A, B,
Accept the
C?
gift, approve the various leases, all five
No,
of
I know,
them.
it's separate as A.
That's what I have.
Is it 5, 6?
Can I have a motion?
That's what I'm saying.
Mark, second please. Jack, all in favor? Okay.
The stable,
Opposed?
Aye.
was it?
everybody's
Yes,
in favor.
are our listeners in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
It seems to be unanimous, best as I can tell. New business? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir? Excuse me, wait a minute. What am I?
I'm sorry. I'm good.
Oh,
Can I do one thing before?
yes, sir, Mike.
We'd like to congratulate Brianna for graduating from Norwalk Community College. Heading on to a four-year college in the fall. We'll miss her, but thank you very much for all that.
Lovely. Well, with that light note, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Yes, Patty, second?
Oh,